mountain named Alsawad hinted at its hidden dangers and dark mysteries. Its road was cobblestoned, precipitous and narrow, barely wide enough to fit a single passing car, but it was for two opposing directions. Along its edge, there were small scattered piles of stones and dirt. Can I climb it? Is it all cobblestoned? Doubts crept into my mind, but I pushed them away, recalling all the defensive riding techniques I had learned. These techniques were like weapons for a soldier on a battlefield. They wouldn't only witness my adventure, they would shape and control it. As a result, the doubts evaporated and the mountain peak grew into my mind, fueling my determination. I checked the umbrella. It gripped tightly on the motorcycle, and its heavy iron bones were so well. So it was completely ready. I chanted, "I am ready for it, I'm ready for it," and winked at the road before my motorcycle roared to life. As I climbed higher, the wind started attacking the umbrella, like unseen hands trying to shove me out of the path. The umbrella held its ground, but the wheels swayed slightly under pressure. Still, the motorcycle was under my control. Very close to a minor crest, he needed some support. Just right after the perfect moment, I downshifted. But what added fuel to the fire was dirt and loose stones tripped her up, so she couldn't stand all of that and slid down. I steered her towards a pile at the edge. When trying to get out, I felt at the very last moments. Fear tugged at me and my breaths caught in my throat. By sheer luck, a motorcyclist appeared in my line of sight. At that moment, he was more than a stranger. He was my savior. A surge of relief washed over me as he parked, willing to help my motorcycle. After a quick chat, he helped me get her over the crest. He was an incredibly skilled rider. I asked him about the coming of the road. "There are some crests, but they are easier," he replied. Gritting my teeth, I kept going, storing that experience in my brain. Unluckily, the cell phone battery was running low, and calls kept coming in. I pulled out my power bank from my sling bag and tucked the cell phone into my pocket so it would get a break after a long day of hard work. Sometime later, the road entered a new chapter. The half nearest to the precipice was somehow good and flat, but the second one was hollowed and scattered with those piles that had stretched further. On an uphill climb and quite close to a corner, a motorcycle sped down my part of the road. An emergency alarm went off in my mind, and that motorcycle passenger noticed that. "Keep it in your lane," he yelled, but it felt like an angry ball was charging straight at me. Instinctively, I swerved into the second rough half. The stones and dirt pushed back against the wheels, and she started sliding and sliding. I tried both brakes, but they couldn't help her by any means. Deliberately, I tipped her to the side to avoid falling down the precipice. The scorching exhaust pressed against my right leg, leaving a big and a small burn stamp on it as if it were a certificate of that adventure. My energy drained like a balloon that ran out of air, but strangely, the pain felt distant. Immediately, the rider and his passengers rushed to help me and my motorcycle. I caught my breath and felt a little bit better, then kept going. After a short while, the ruggedness shifted into a new phase. Dirt and loose stones blanketed everything, and most of it sloped downward. Not only that, but also uneven stair-like steps appeared here and there, surrounded by jagged fixed stones like shards of broken glass, as if nature itself were trying to block my path. I decided to park her in a safe place. Just then, a motorcycle with a heavy load showed up. It looked worn out, but its engine growled with youthful strength. The rider greeted me and his voice was somehow familiar. "Marwan, welcome to my countryside." He was the one who called me in the first place. "How about I take you the rest of the path? I will park yours at a nearby house here and we'll keep an eye on it. The road is seriously, utterly dangerous," he suggested. "Sounds cool, but what about your load?" I was wondering, glancing at it. "You don't know how heavy we carry together with 2 passengers or more sometimes," he said. My eyes widened in shock. Then he loaded my baggage into his pannier and I hopped on it. For him, riding on that road became second nature. At a fast speed he was as if it was smooth. Meanwhile, his motorcycle was teetering and the stones rattled beneath us. The rider got me spellbound by his skill. Finally we arrived, and my maternal uncle Adil was waiting. His thick dark goatee added a sense of gravitas to his face. "Thank God you are safe," he said. That time I truly understood what these words meant. We greeted each other with open arms and smiles, and a warm reunion brought us together after a long time. The rain poured heavily that night, filling the air with an earthy aroma. I breathed deeply and with a big smile, then my heart swelled with gratitude for God's grace. As the sun emerged, it cast a soft golden light over the mountains and then spilled into the room where I was. It charged me with energy. Like a bird ready to soar, I was eager to explore the natural beauty around me. The countryside atmosphere was like heaven. Birds sang their early morning songs and the weather was cool and cloudy. So my uncle and I went hiking. My walking skills there were poor and my breaths came in shallow gasps, but the beauty of nature swallowed me up. As we returned, I plumped into the mattress to take a nap. During it, my uncle put burnt ointment next to me. It took a long time to arrive. Therefore, the countryside was shut off from city convenience. Even daily needs were kilometers long away. But the lifestyle there was healthier and their lands were lush with crops and plants. That evening, as my uncle and I sat under the shade of a wall on his small farm, dark and heavy clouds loomed over the surrounding mountains like a ceiling enclosing us in nature's grand room. The wind howled angrily at the innocent trees and plants. Silently they trembled with fear until the wind softened. By that scene we swam in old memories, life experiences and humorous stories. He had a unique rhythm to his words. They exuded wisdom. When I was with him, my ears perked up. Also, I met some friendly neighbors like Ziad and his son Umar. They were warm and helpful, making me feel as though we had known each other for a long time. As we were talking, an old man joined us. His little white beard illuminated with faith, and his face was shining. I was transported back to the days of my grandfather Ahmed, may Allah have mercy on him. Their looks were similar to some degree. He sat near to me and evoked some memories with my grandfather. When a prayer time came, he left everything behind his back and turned to his creator. His name was Saad, and he was Adil's maternal uncle. The next day, Saad, Adil, Umar and I set off on a trip to Al-Sadh castle. It perched on the very peak of Alsawad mountain like a crown, and its ancient architecture was fascinating. The footpath leading up to it was treacherous and seemed impossible to step on. My companions moved through gracefully. Whether older or younger, their steps were so light, while I felt like a 90-year-old man, stumbling along and carefully watching each step I took. Despite the challenge, excitement bubbled up inside my chest. In my eyes, it was a trip towards history. As we approached the castle edge, I spotted a man and his children digging a deep hole next to two others, each about 3 meters deep. Dirt covered them from head to toe, and they looked up as we passed. Curious, I turned to my uncle and asked, "What are they doing?" "Oh, it's a long story," he replied, sighing. "Some people believe there is a hidden treasure buried under the castle, but it's only a myth," he added. When we finally reached the castle, we sat and leaned against the ancient wall of its old mosque, the only structure still standing as a complete reminder of those who had lived there long ago. The view around us was charming. The raised fields rippled down the slopes, and the valley was a lush carpet of green. As we talked, a gentle murmur of a stream floated up from the valley, adding a peaceful melody to the scene. We felt on top of the world. I noticed large heavy rocks scattered here and there that even 4 strong men might struggle to lift one. I looked at Saad wondering, as if he read my thoughts. He replied, "These rocks were carried from far away by the old nation who had built the castle and lived here. They suffered to death in life." He pointed down the mountain. "You know what, Marwan? To fetch water to drink and for daily use, we had to walk for long hours to the valley. We used to carry bottles to fill them with, either on our heads or on the backs of donkeys." He gave a small sad smile. "Just a few years ago, a charity installed a water system for us, and we felt a great relief," he added. I tried to imagine that hardship, but it felt impossible. A life filled with such struggle was unbearable. "I was one of those people who lived in this castle 40 years ago," said my uncle Adil, with a nostalgic smile. My eyebrows shot up. "Really?" "Yes," he nodded, gazing at the heavy rocks. "Back then it was a 5-story castle which had around 366 small rooms. But over time it began to fall apart. Now even the mosque wall is barely standing," he sighed. His voice felt heavy with sadness. We looked at the mosque wall. A part of it precariously leaned as if it was a person struggling to live. A deep silence fell among us. About an hour later, thick and dark clouds began to gather, swirling like a giant shroud over the mountain tops. Birds flew in circles, screeching as if trapped beneath the clouds. The scene reminded us of God and His power. We quietly offered our paces. As we returned, we took a longer and less steep path, which was for camels one day. Our moods were great and we shared stories and laughs along. The next day evening, my uncle and I stayed on his small farm A man with a full beard joined us. He was kind and religious. After chatting for some minutes, he invited us to be his guests on Friday. As he left, Adel told me his house is down the valley we saw from the castle and smiled. My heart wanted to jump to it straight away. In the following days, we wandered here and there, exploring hills and mountains. In some places, naturally carved rocks looked like sofas, with birds' flat seat-like surfaces and rough and sturdy backs. From time to time, we were sitting on these natural seats, taking in the surrounding views. One evening, many neighbors gathered in the Mahmala area on the path edge that led to Musaina market. There were carved rocks that offered us some shade, and we sat on them chatting with one another. Suddenly, thunder roared in the distance, rumbling like a red-eyed monster looking for prey. Neither trees, rocks, humans, animals, nor anything would be safe from its reach. The thunder rolled again, louder and closer than the last, prowling over the mountains like a predator. It echoed in our hearts. Quickly, we switched off our cell phones and praised God. We felt a shared sense of vigilance. As the Friday sun rose high in the sky, we set our sights on that valley called Al-Buhair. To me, the trip to it was grueling with its steep path, but I persisted in reaching it to get the reward of nature, a hidden paradise. Surrounded by trees, some of which seemed hundreds and thousands of years old, we felt enveloped in a matchless beauty. The running stream tickled our ears with its soft melody. On either side of the stream, rocks that made the place even more enchanting, forming connected shallow pools and towering canyon walls.
يا سلام سلم.
Tiny fish darted through the crystal clear water, glinting like scarlet jewels. We waded to a mini waterfall beneath, letting the sparkle droplets around us. Our hearts glowed with happiness. After a while, we climbed up toward an old mosque on the hillside to perform the Friday prayer. Then we went to our host house. The sound of the stream running nearby and the scent of the pure fresh air drew smiles on our faces. On our way back, I remembered small angled holes in some of the walls, like those in the mosque, and felt curious about them. What were the holes on some walls used for? I asked my uncle. This mountain was once a battlefield. Soldiers used them to shoot through, and their angled design added a layer of protection, making it harder for a bullet's straight-line attack to penetrate, he replied. On Sunday morning, my uncle and I thought of a trip that would carve itself into our memories. Suddenly, his eye glinted excitedly. "Let us go to it! It will be the face of tourism here," he said. Without another word, we told Umar to join us, and within an hour we were on our way to Al-Buhair Valley. As soon as we arrived, Umar went to Athaluth market to bring us lunch and cat. There on Mind and Focus, my uncle prepared a cloth net to catch some fish. Then he moved to a deep stream under an ancient tree. I could sense an air of intensity around him as he tried many times. When he changed the spot and after what felt like a battle, he caught a single shimmering fish and tossed it next to me. It was the only one. I couldn't just sit and wait, so I waded into the stream and lay beside a small waterfall for about 2 hours. When Umar returned, we gathered around and had lunch, and our eyes darted to the view around us. Then my uncle gestured toward a narrow path. We followed him through and soon found ourselves at a mysterious place that looked like a lost fragment of a forest. Thin twisted roots dangled from above, while thick verdant ferns hung down like a curtain, concealing what lay beyond. With a cautious step, I parted the ferns and got into a bed. It was a unique small cave. Around and inside it, the air was surprisingly cool and refreshing, laced with the scent of ancient rocks. It felt as if nature had installed an invisible air conditioner to it. The coolness wrapped around me, soothing in a way I couldn't describe. Some plants in its rocky ceiling looked like snakes poised to strike. Their roots were deep within. From what looked like their eyes, water droplets fell with soft echoes.
حياك يا خال حياك. يا سلام علاقات بلدي.
We sat by that cave, sensing the gentle air touching us and laughing at the humorous stories my uncle shared. Our laughter echoed across the mountain, filling the quiet space with warmth. On our way back, we watched a group of monkeys scaling the mountainside. A boundless joy filled our hearts. It was as big as the sky.
لا ابنه تحته الأول. وينها؟ يا مالطة إن شاء الله. قاعد تفل ازاي ولا شو قريدي.
On the last day, Saad invited us to his house. My uncle and I gathered with some of his sons and neighbors, sharing stories and viewpoints. When it was time to leave, we thanked them warmly for their hospitality. On Tuesday morning, I stood on the threshold of a new adventure. I set out for Usab al-Safil and started riding across Alsawad mountain. And so, my next chapter began.